everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
We are back again this week to have some fun talking about some questions from you all. The special Q&A episode here with me and the gentleman right there. You see, Shannon McClung. We'll introduce ourselves officially in just a second. Michael Vogel is not joining us, unfortunately, this week. He is off on travels as a very busy man in the world. So we are handling things today and having a fun Q&A. I am the Outlaw, John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and on the Geek Buddies, Shannon.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where the second season of Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City, our episodes just started airing last week on YouTube. So at some point, they will be making their way to Netflix, where the entire first season is right now.
Wow, yeah, you should definitely go watch that. Absolutely. A lot going on there with Vogel and Shannon McClung's writing on Strawberry Shortcake. Absolutely. Some good stuff. Last night, watched the Modern Family episode with my brother there, Shannon McClung. She is going through them all and pulled up one. I was like, hey, we know that guy. A lot of fun. But yeah, we are answering questions from you all. We put the call out on Twitter. We're going to take our turns one by one, reading the questions and answering them for you all. Hope this is a fun episode for you all. We'll get some, I've already seen some topical questions and also some fun questions about us as the Geek Buddies overall. And if Michael Vogel gets me some of his answers to these questions, I will add these to the end of the episode so people can have their point of their questions answered with Mikey as well. But without further ado, we should also thank Carbon Health, who powers and sponsors here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies, specifically carbonhealth.com. Go and head over there to get all your healthcare needs serviced and taken care of, and any questions you might have answered there by the fine professionals over at Carbon Health. They got 125 locations nationwide. They got 50 plus locations there in California alone. COVID testing. They have rapid antigen kits you can get there at the clinics themselves for COVID testing as well. They also believe in creating these plans for you specifically and working with communities that uplift each other. And certainly the Geek Buddies community is one of those communities that does uplift each other. So let's jump into it without further ado. Shannon, you want to take the first question?
The first one from one of John's fellow podcast hosts, a very good friend of ours, Steve Morris.
Hey,
and so just to give his Twitter handle the proper credit, from @SRMorris.
Yes.
He says, okay, @Geek Buddies, here's my questions. Hollywood has spent the last 20 years embracing geek culture, excuse me. Are there any areas of that culture that they've really gotten wrong or entirely missed? What geeky things are still waiting to be exploited?
Wow, that is a good question. I would imagine there's a lot, isn't there, in the geek culture that hasn't quite fully been explored? Yes, we've seen comic books and we've seen superheroes, villains, all that kind of stuff, graphic novels. I think anime is the next thing, right? It seems to be slowly becoming something that's coming over into the States and people are enjoying it, but it's not quite caught on to the massive levels that you've seen other geekdom get caught up in. So I think that's the next frontier for me personally, and video game stuff, right? I mean, we've got video games. People enjoy talking about video games, but video game movies that are consistently at that level and delivering really good movies, I think, is the next step for that. Shannon, what do you think? Are there areas that we're not addressing in the world of geekdom?
Well, I think adult animation is still an area that can, and I think that extends beyond anime. I mean, I think animated programming that is specifically made for, the older crowd.
Yeah.
That is still an area that I think that they are having some success. I mean, the Harley Quinn animated series for HBO Max, I mean, they're getting ready to start their third season pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that is very much for grownups. That is not for kids. And I think you can tell when a certain aspect of geek culture has really sort of penetrated the public at large. Like superhero movies are no longer a geeky thing. I mean, they're the movies right now. I mean, they're the ones that are making, the buckets of cash. So I think there is a certain segment of the population that instinctively sees animation and think that's for kids.
Right.
And there was a time that they would see a superhero. They would see somebody in a cape or somebody flying and think that's for kids. So I think it can definitely happen, but I think for adult animation to really catch on, it's going to have to, I think it's probably going to have to expand its not necessarily its source material, but I guess it's the genres. I mean, right now, a lot of adult animation, very action heavy or comedy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, the action heavy stuff does tend to be a little superhero-y or sci-fi-y, but that's more like the anime. So I think it can happen. It will probably just take time. I mean, I'm struggling to think of an animated feature that was made more for grown-ups that's come out. You definitely get it more on the television side, but I don't know. And I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me. Toot sweet. But that's kind of what I was thinking. And there are certain genres in films. Like I do think, something that I really like is steampunk.
Yes.
And there have been a couple of attempts. I mean, like the Wild Wild West movie that was kind of a steampunky type thing.
Yeah.
That's something that I would like to see. I mean, there's actually a animated series, an adult animated series on Amazon Prime right now called The Legend of Vox Machina? Vox Machina. That is a little more fantasy based, but there is one character that has this sort of like a pistol. Yeah. And along with being very funny, I mean, it is very, again, not for kids, but it's really, really enjoyable. And so there is a slight steampunk aspect to it. It's a little more fantasy, a little more Dungeons and Dragons. But steampunk is something that I would love to see. I would love to see a big steampunk action movie. I think that would be great. Yeah,
that would be fun. And the other part of the question is, are there any areas of the geek culture that they've really gotten wrong or entirely missed? I would say a lot of the female-based, female-led geek culture, because a majority of the geek culture over the last that they've made movies out of, that they've focused on, has been very firmly in the male camp. And I think that is changing, certainly over the last 5 years. But I think people of color and women-based or female-based geek culture properties and IP and franchises, those have gotten short shrift over the last since the beginning and the explosion of the geek culture stuff. And I think that's going to be the next frontier. And we're seeing that change. I think Ms. Marvel is a good step in that direction. I think Moon Knight wanted to be a step in that direction, but I do think Ms. Marvel is confidently taking a step in that direction. Black Panther was a part of that as well. Maybe a little bit of Black Widow. Hawkeye certainly having
Kate Bishop.
Yeah, Kate Bishop with Haley Steinfeld leading the way there. So the doors are opening, but I think that's going to be the next frontier. And male fans need to start getting used to this. This is going to start happening more and more. So get knowledge on the female-based geek properties, superhero properties, franchises, what have you, because that's going to open the door for sure. And maybe even Dungeons and Dragons. I've started playing with some people recently. I've never thought I'd play in my entire effing life. And some friends, Wendy Lee and some friends that are late to the party, they talked me into playing with them, and I've been enjoying it. 2.5 hour sessions every Saturday night, and it's been a blast. So that could be something that they could open the door to, more of the RPG stuff at some point. Because you talk Vox Machina, that came out of Critical Role doing RPG stuff over at Geek and Sundry, and that blew up, and so much so that they now have that animated show. So incredible stuff. All right, where do we go to next? Shannon, what's the next question?
Let's see. So on mine, so this is sort of in the video game.
Sorry, it's my turn to choose. You chose Steve. I apologize. Let me jump in.
No worries.
All right, I think this is a good one here from Aaron Garner at the Brew One. He says, let me share the screen here so you guys can read along with me. And I'm trying to do that for all these questions. Is there a moment or time in your life that you realized you were a geek? If so, what show / book / movie / event made you realize it, or did you always consider yourself a geek? Oh, Shannon, thoughts?
Well, I always, I grew up loving Star Wars and Indiana Jones. As you can tell, right there.
Ew.
So I never really associated that with being a geek. Like those were just the things that those were the things that I liked. I mean, it was probably around, 1989's Batman. That was really my introduction to superheroes, even though I knew about the Adam West show, and I had seen the Christopher Reeve Superman movies several times. They were never real. Like I liked the concept. It just was not really my thing.
Right.
But I want to say, it would have been much later. I did really start to enjoy the superhero stuff. I loved the superhero genre, but it was probably in 2000.
Okay.
When I was going to the movies, and I don't remember the film that it was attached to, but I was literally going to the movies just to see the first teaser for X-Men. Multiple times. I remember I had gotten into a movie theater with some friends, and we had missed some of the trailers. Like we were late, and I remember asking a stranger, I was like, "Hey, did they play the X-Men trailer?" And this lady looked at me like, "Who is this dude trying to talk to me in the middle of the movies?" But I think it's also when it started to become okay. Because again, I loved the first two Batman movies back then, and like Batman Forever, I kind of convinced myself, I was like, it's good. It was only like Batman and Robin that I was like, maybe not. But when you saw like these bigger projects with big talent attached, they started to get this push. That's when it was like, oh, okay, like people are now starting to realize, the stories, the really, really epic stories that these characters have. And yes, they're in capes and masks and stuff like that. But a lot of these stories are very human. Yeah. I know I've talked about it before, but in the wake of '89 Batman, like that's when I started reading the New Titans. And it was the same time that A Lonely Place of Dying was in the middle of coming out. Yeah. And, watching Dick Grayson train Tim Drake. I guess, that would have been after the miniseries, but like watching that happen, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And meeting other folks who were into the same thing. It would have been in the 96 to 2000 area.
Yeah. I was a nerd first in terms of like, I was really into history and really into those, talking about stuff that had happened in our culture and all that. So for me, since I was a young kid, I was into that, and I would gravitate to friends who'd have discussions on that. Geekery didn't come around until later, and maybe my first brush with it was Star Wars and Star Trek. And certainly Star Wars was cool. People loved it. People enjoyed it. But if you wore the shirt sometimes, depending on what shirt you wore, the jocks would absolutely make fun of you and absolutely put you in the geek nerd crowd or beat you up or do whatever. But it was Star Trek that I would have to kind of hide away and discuss with a certain intellectual nerds and shit about. Whereas Star Wars is more about like just celebrating a fun space adventure. That's when they really kind of hit me, this idea of geek. But it wasn't fully formed in my head until I think I was 15 or 16, and I was going to the comic book shop every week to get those folder of comic books. And I would sit in the back with, and I've talked about this, with dudes who are like older than I was or around the same age, teenage kids around the same age. And we would all just sit there in stools and read our folder of comic books in quiet. And that's when I realized, I'm part of this geek club, and I'm looking forward to getting these comic books every week to sit in the back with other sweaty, swarthy, slightly out of shape dudes and read these comic books and get lost in the stuff. And I think G.I. Joe, Transformers animated series, those kinds of things were things that you liked to watch, but you rarely talked about. So you weren't aware that you were a geek or a nerd at the young age when you're watching those things. It was later that's kind of your launching pad to these other things that kind of made you aware of it when you were a teenager. So that's my answer to that question.
It's the awareness.
Yes.
It's like, you know what you like,
Right.
But sort of understanding like, oh, this is a part of an entire culture.
Right.
And the more exposure you get to it, the more fun it is. I mean, I want to say my first Comic-Con was in 2006. And, Vogel had gone for years at that point. I had another friend named Aaron Bennett, who had gone a couple of times. And I remember going down there, not really understanding what it was. I mean, especially the big deal they were making about it. I was kind of like, oh, okay. And driving into San Diego, like walking into the gas lamp district, and you see the entire sort of 3 or 4 city blocks that everything like, superheroes and sci-fi, I mean, everything has just been taken over. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't know this existed. I mean, it's just very, very joyful, like just ear to ear. I mean, and I remember, the first time you went, I remember the first time Kalinowski went, and just seeing like your eyes kind of bug out of your head.
It's true. You never forget your first con. You never forget your first Comic-Con for sure. There's so much, and it's still my favorite experience. Was the first time I went. Still my favorite. It's pure. It wasn't overwhelming. I got all kinds of swag. That I stood in line for like 15, 20 minutes for something at the most. It was great. People were throwing stuff at you, T-shirts and whatever to take with you. And of course now it's people in line for like 3 or 4 hours. So it's a whole nother in terms of on the floor. It's a whole nother ball game now than it used to be. So, but yeah, that first year was still my favorite year for sure. And getting, hanging out with you guys and doing all the madness of the con, sneaking into the parties, the whole 9. It was great. All right, Shannon.
Now we don't have to sneak in.
Yeah, right. Now we don't. Yeah.
Now we know enough people.
And now we can go like, well, I don't know if I want to go. Yeah, it's that kind of thing now. All right, what's you pick one? The next one, brother.
Okay, so this one, I think this is a pretty topical question from James Dunn at _James Dunn. As Tom Cruise gets to an age where he will probably reduce the amount of action movies he does after Mission Impossible, what's next for him? I'd love to see him do more comedy. I kind of miss the Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise style of acting.
Oh, that's a good question from James. Yeah, we saw that in Topic Thunder, turned up to 11, the kind of comedy that he can do there. So certainly he has the chops to play those kinds of things. I think you're going to see a more serious Tom Cruise. I think you're going to see him in smaller films, scratch that Magnolia itch at times. But yes, I think he'll still do those. I think he'll still do some fun comedies and whatever. But, he might even take a little bit of a break and just kind of do something every few months. Not all the time, not a bunch of movies, not big high profile movies. But then again, man, it's where his bread is buttered. So he might find a way to be a part of a franchise where he'll have the occasional action scene, but maybe he's not relied upon to be the main star. I don't know, but those are the things that are going on in my head. Maybe even little like older rom-coms. I don't know. Maybe he'll go into the it's complicated stage of his life like Baldwin and Martin did. I don't know. What do you think here with this one, Shannon?
I don't think he's anywhere near stopping these action movies.
Really? Okay.
Nope. I think he is going to keep going until the wheels fall off.
Wow.
And if his most recent offering is any indication, I mean, it sure seems like Top Gun's going to be the movie of the year.
Oh yeah,
right now. And it was great. I mean, and it was a terrific, fantastic film, and it's certainly one that I don't think anyone could have predicted. Like everyone thought it was probably going to do well.
Yeah.
But to this level, I don't think anyone could see that. Something that I would like to see him do, I'd like to see him chase after an Oscar again. I feel like that's kind of been in his rear view mirror for a while now, that he had his Born on the 4th of July success. He had his Magnolia, his Magnolia run. He had his Jerry Maguire run. I pulled up his IMDb as you were reading the question, and I want to say of his recent films, the only one, American Made, which
that was good.
that was a good movie that probably didn't get marketed very well. And also his leading lady was so much younger than he was. Actually, when I was at rehearsal today on break, it was playing, like it was on FX or something. And people were like, people had been watching, like, this is pretty good. I'm like, yeah, this is a good movie. I mean, the actress who played his wife, she was probably too young and he was too old.
Yes.
So they needed to find sort of, you know, a better balance, because that was the one thing. Because I remember you and I saw that together.
Yes. Yeah.
That was the one thing that was a little jarring. It's like, you are so much older than her. But besides that, I mean, the last, I don't know, 12 years of movies. I mean, Top Gun, Fallout, American Made, The Mummy, you know, the 2 Jack Reacher movies, which I was not a fan of those.
I like the first one.
You know, and a lot of people do. A lot of people like that movie. I mean, Edge of Tomorrow, even Oblivion. Like Oblivion, that's a smaller movie, but it's like a smaller Tom Cruise movie. I mean, it's still an enormous sci-fi production. Like I think the last time he tried to do comedy was Rock of Ages, which, again, that one did not yield the best results. He's got his stable of directors, which is basically Doug Liman and Chris McQuarrie at this point. And it seems like they're the only ones he really makes movies with. I would like to see him and Doug Liman go for an Oscar, because Doug Liman, you know, he's an interesting filmmaker. I mean, I'd like to see him make another smaller movie. I think under different circumstances, American Made could have been that movie.
Well, yeah. He's got the chops. That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Do you remember? Oh gosh, what was it? It was the Redford movie, that Lions for Lambs.
Yeah.
Like something like that. Like, I would love to see Tom Cruise play a politician. Like,
yeah, you might see more films with intrigue, thrillers, not action movies, right? You might see more of those, like where he's having to use his mind a little more, his brains a little bit more. And it's a little less about the action sequence. It's more about, well, if he's running to get away from something, right? As opposed to he's jumping into a helicopter or a plane and riding on the side of it. Like, it'll be smaller things, but but the film will have weightier subject matter to tackle. I could absolutely see that, because, I mean, he's this rarity that he has survived this long as an action star. None of them are still doing it at the level that he is. Like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Seagal, Van Damme, none of them are doing it at the level that even Keanu is a little winded from the double Matrix and John Wick. Yeah, because Revolutions was horrible. So it's like it becomes where you become a parody of yourself. And I think he was headed towards that after The Mummy. Certainly people were ready to write the funeral or the obituary for Tom Cruise in action movies after The Mummy crashed and burned. But he bounced back with those Mission Impossible movies, just like he did after
Night and Day.
Right, after Night and Day, and after the situation with jumping up. Yeah, right, exactly. The whole promotional campaign for Night and Day that almost sank him. He bounced back with the Mission Impossible 3 movie. He bounced back with that Tropic Thunder movie. So he's a survivor, and he's got good instincts in the water. Even when it looks like he might be the next meal, he figures out how to survive and come out on top. And I think that's something that's so great about him. So I am absolutely going to be fascinated to see what he does here, because we're crossing 60 with Tom Cruise, you know, and no offense, but 60 ain't 40, bro. 60 ain't 30, bro. It's a whole nother ballgame. And we're seeing him get injured more consistently. And so those things start to become red flags if you're a studio. And, you know, and people don't want to see. But then again, we're seeing Stallone coming back in Tulsa King, Jeff Goldblum. And this could be interesting that he does like the Old Man series on TV. We could see Tom in a streaming series. That would totally work. I would love to see Tom as a bit of a CIA badass in a series where people are coming after him for whatever reason. So you could still keep the action side of things, but also give him something more, as I said, weightier to chew on as an actor in terms of dialogue and
so I think
scenes.
It was War of the Worlds that he jumped on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So that was War of the Worlds, and what did he record?
My bad.
So it was
Mission Impossible 3 was the one he did after to try to redeem. Yeah.
And it was Night and Day, because Night and Day was kind of didn't do well, and
Yeah.
that's when they added Renner to Ghost Protocol, because it's like, oh, it's like when Jeremy Renner was the guy that you handed your franchise off to, like with Bourne, with Mission Impossible. And then because Ghost Protocol did so well, it was the return of Tom Cruise. And I want to say, with the exception of The Mummy and Rock of Ages, I mean, everything post Ghost Protocol, like he's really kind of honed in.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's move on to another one here. I like this. Well, we'll address this one quickly from Adam Lee here. Let me share the screen and read it. He says, "How did you?" He's at Adam Lee 832-81485. I hope I got that right. How did you meet each other? I'm a huge fan of Geek Buddies and follow Johnson's Collider Days and Movie Trivia Showdown. I was first introduced to Mike and Shannon as guests on the Cinephiles, but never heard the origin story. So, Shannon, you want to take it away with the origin story of the Geek Buddies?
So Vogel and I met freshman year at Florida State University. We were both in the School of Theater, and became very, very fast friends. And the next year, sophomore year, we were supposed to live together, and then I ended up getting hired at Universal Orlando to play John Connor in the Terminator show, and that money to a 19-year-old, my eyes just popped out of my head, and I'm like, yeah, guys, I don't think I'm coming back. And it was that year that you got to Florida State, and you met Vogel, but you guys didn't really become tight until London, right?
London was the launching off point for me, but we knew each other, of each other. We had met each other, but yeah, we didn't know each other that well. And then I applied to go to London because our friend Jen Fraser talked me into it on a night walk back from a party or something. And I was like, okay, I didn't have a lot of money. And my parents didn't have a lot of money, but I wanted to go to London. And so I applied, got in. And then when they were looking at the assignments, if everybody got in, I just saw Vogel standing there. And for whatever reason, this happens every once in a while in my life, something calls me to do something. And something made me go walk up to Vogel, be like, hey, dude, I wonder if you want to be my roommate in London. You can go ahead and say no if you want. I just thought it'd be kind of fun because I kind of heard good things about Michael, obviously. And so I was like, this could be a safe situation for me because I didn't have a lot of friends besides our friend Rains at the school. So I was like, okay, this could be a barrier for me. And remember, I'm 7 years older than everybody else at this time because of having been in the military. So I kind of needed a buffer, so to speak. But I also kind of trusted Mike implicitly almost immediately. And he, to my surprise, and I think everyone's surprised, he said yes. And I thought he was going to go with Josh Moon or whatever. And then we ended up becoming roommates. And that's how we became friends and the yin and yang of each other at times. And then I met you at Universal, I think, the first time.
October of 1999.
Yeah.
I was performing for Universal's Halloween Horror Nights. They used to have a show. They don't do it anymore, called Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. And it was sort of a little bit of a takeoff where Bill and Ted would go on an adventure with whatever characters or personalities were popular from pop culture of that year.
Yeah.
It's something that they could do before the days of before YouTube, because they would use characters that they did not necessarily have the rights to under satire law, which is how SNL does it. So I played Austin Powers, and I played Austin Powers a couple of years for that show. But I remember Vogel brought a whole crew down from Tallahassee, because I want to say Josh Moon was there, right?
Yeah,
our friend Josh Moon. And several other people. That was the first time I met John. And there was we didn't talk for more than 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. But there was just an electricity between the two of us that it's like, oh, this guy's gonna be a friend.
Yeah.
And I didn't see you again until 2002 because I was going to Universal Japan. I was going to be gone for a year, which ended up becoming 2 years that I worked in Japan. But I stayed with you and Mike and Ian and your place in Hollywood. And that was another situation where, you know, the brief interactions that we had was just, again, it was electric. Like we just knew like, oh, we're going to be friends. Yeah. And then when I got out here for good, that's when it became official. Yeah. And Shannon is the rare friend where I've only ever fought with him once or twice. And both times I was wrong. And those are the only times. And it's the rare friend. And I think because Shannon's always been cool with me and good with me. He's always understood like who I am. So it's like that has been a godsend so many times when I was going through all the stuff that I was going through, my own personal journeys of mental health and emotional shit, depression and all of that, which is causing all the fights I was having with people at the time in the 2000s and early 2010s. Shannon was the one kind of, what do you call it? Like the North Star? What do you call it? Like just the statue in the ground. I knew this is the one place I could go and I'd be okay with everything. And we always had fun. So yeah, that's the truth of it. So yeah, there you go. It was interesting because having witnessed a few kerfuffles, there's an escalation. And again, like I think I can count on one hand how many times you got mad at me. Fingers. But when it happened, it was I always was I was always a pacifist. I was like, all right, let's talk. Let's talk. Like what's this actually about? Yeah. And I think John was so used to having someone come back combative, that just being able to sit and talk and be like, all right, so this is what's going on. It's like, okay, yeah, you got mad that I did that thing. I was wrong. Sorry. Yeah. Like we don't have to go up here. Like we can talk here, and you know, and vice versa. I mean, you've seen me mad a handful of times. I don't like getting mad. I know you don't. It's not your thing. I feel bad. I feel guilty. Yeah. You carry it for days. I remember. Guilty Southern Baptist. Yeah. And I should say, I was right one time. You never leave a man behind. I was right about that one. Every other time, I don't think. Are we going to relitigate this? No. Let's move on. You've got your answer, Adam. All right. Shannon, what? Oh yeah, and so the genesis of the Geek Buddies was basically when I got into this business, I was doing shows, and I would always pitch after I felt more comfortable. I would always pitch the idea of the three of us doing a show. I was always on Shannon and Mike about it, mentioning it, especially because we'd have these great discussions about movies after the movie. We'd sit at the bar. Sometimes it was just the three of us who went. We'd sit at the bar and just sit and talk about the movie, or we hang out sometime and talk about the movie. And so eventually, I finally wore them down, and I said, you know, Infinity War is the perfect place for us to launch the show because everyone wants to talk about Infinity War. And it worked out, you know, and we've been doing it ever since, which is kind of crazy that we're in our fourth year. Would you say fourth year? Because I mean, well, I think it was Endgame, wasn't it? Was it? Oh, I'm sorry, it was Endgame. Sorry about that. Endgame. Yeah. Everyone want to talk about it. So it's 3 years. Yeah. Which is kind of crazy. It's so funny. Along these lines, and I know we've talked about this. Like we'll move on to another question. There was an evening where the two of us and Steve Morris, like we'd gone somewhere. We'd gone to a movie at the ArcLight. Yep. And we ended up at Stout, which is like a gastro, like beer and burger place. I miss those places. They don't have all. Oh my god! Really? You don't have those? Not where I live. They have them downtown. They don't have them where I live. So that's right. You're in the burbs. That's right. Safely so. Yeah. Go ahead. But I have two audio files. It's from like 2013 of you talking with somebody. I don't remember if it was Steve or not, but we were talking about Superman. We were talking about Man of Steel. Yeah. You were like, this is a man from another planet. I have that, and I have one with Steve as well, making a Rocha point and Steve making a Morris point. That's awesome. Yeah. We've had some great, I mean, our discussions in our group of friends is lost to the ether like the dust of Odin, and it's a shame because we have a very intelligent group of friends, and there has been some phenomenal conversations about it, and some fun ball busting and
type of commercial, but overall conversations that were really interesting to listen to from so many different points of views, whether battles were ensuing or not. So, all right, you want to take the next one here, Shannon?
Yeah, so this one is from a very loyal audience member, Edward Harrell at Haskell420.
Yeah, here we go. All right, go ahead.
And the question is, hey, gang, we've heard fans beg for someone to remake the Star Wars prequels and or new trilogy.
Ooh.
Each film would cost $150 to $200 million. Do you think that will ever happen? Some director raising that much, hire the cast, production crew, and actually do it? Or would Disney, Lucasfilm stop them?
Well, yes, they would stop them because they don't have the rights to do it. I don't think they're ever going to remake the prequel trilogy because people love the prequel trilogy now. And those kids are adults now, and they're the ones who essentially willed with their universal energy Hayden Christensen to come back as Darth Vader, which I never thought I'd see in my lifetime because he was destroyed for his performance by critics at the time and by people like me who were fans of Star Wars because of, his delivery, his acting, and the dialogue was terrible. It's bad direction possibly by Lucas, but I never thought it would happen. So now the prequel trilogy is like revered by Star Wars fandom. And although people still have opinions about it that aren't necessarily positive, we've been drowned out by the people that are positive about it. Certainly, if you were at Star Wars Celebration this year, there was a lot of prequel trilogy stuff that was all over in terms of panels and merchandise and cosplay. But the new trilogy, no, I don't see Star Wars ever remaking a trilogy ever, because that is essentially admitting to the tune of $1 billion that you messed up a trilogy. And there's something Disney does really well is never admit fuck ups. That's why the Don't Say Gay bill situation was a real surprise by them. They rarely admit fuck ups, and they just kind of move on and keep chugging forward because they know eventually people are going to forget, and they've been around for decades, and they're able to make other products or other pieces of media that people will love and lets people forget the anger they have for them for anything else that they had done before. So those are my thoughts on it. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely read that online from some parts of the fan base, like, oh, they need to remake this. They need to remake Game of Thrones season 8. Yeah. In terms of Star Wars, I don't think. Well, one, as John said, like you people aren't allowed to remake that stuff because Lucasfilm and Disney owns Lucasfilm, Disney owns Star Wars. So you might have people make short films and fan films, but in terms of like making a feature, like you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Also, from Lucasfilm's point of view, along with not necessarily wanting to admit to having made a mistake, I don't think they have any interest in revisiting the past. I think they see the value in expanding the universe because you can only rely on Mark Hamill for so long. Like you want to, if you truly want to make the brand last, you have to have more material out there, and we're getting the High Republic, and it sounds like that's what the Acolyte is going to be set during towards the end of the High Republic. But we have these novels, graphic novels. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and that's not to say that every graphic novel character is going to make the leap to the big screen or the small screen.
True.
But just like what they announced at the skeleton crew, I mean, I think that's within the timelines that we know, there are so many stories that are still to be told. Like, it's a big galaxy.
Yeah.
So much stuff can be happening. I mean, an empire is huge.
Yes.
And so even just within the timelines that we've been presented with, which right now are the prequel, original trilogy, sequel trilogy, a lot of stories there. But also, I think they want to continue the timeline. Like, they want to go back to the High Republic. Maybe they'll go back to the Old Republic. They've done that in comics and books and games. Maybe they'll do that with a show or a film. We'll see. So yes, as bad a taste as a movie can leave in one's mouth, the idea that they would go back and give it another swing, I actually don't think there's a lot of money there.
No. But I do think, as a little bit of a side tangent on this, that Daisy Ridley, Boyega, and Oscar Isaac will all come back down the road for a new trilogy. I do believe that. I think you're going to have to do a lot of bridge repairing. And look, Oscar Isaac has already been in Moon Knight, so that bridge is somewhat repaired. But I think Ridley is seeing that she's not quite as successful post-Star Wars, Boyega too. And so you start to kind of see like, okay, time heals all wounds. New people are involved, new writers. It's a more diverse representation in Star Wars now, which I think would appease John Boyega in many ways because he's spoken about that. And then Daisy Ridley, I think there is going to be a reappreciation of Rey because people are so caught up with Kylo Ren. I think they forgot how good Daisy actually is in the role. And I think that's going to, like, kind of like Hayden, they're going to want to will her back to Star Wars. And then I think 10 years from now, we're going to see the beginnings of the trilogy start to happen with those three. I thoroughly believe that. So, all right, let's move on to our next question here. Let me share the screen. This one's from Demon Lord Illidan. Oh my, Demon Lord. I'm sure it's a reference that I don't know about. What he's at original little. I can't tell if those are all I's or L's. So I'm going to say Illidan. What is the one lesser known DC and Marvel character that you'd like to see in live action, either movie or stream? For me, DC, I'd like to see The Question. For Marvel, Box or even Alpha Flight would be interesting. So, Shannon, thoughts on a lesser-known DC and or Marvel character that you'd like to see in live action?
Well, The Question is a fantastic suggestion.
Yes.
On Justice League Unlimited, The Question played a pretty big role. And such a cool, fun character. Like, you would really think that a Question series could be a possibility. I mean, like a lower, not a crazy superhero budget, but just a fun detective noir series. Like, that seems really, really possible. I mean, I think the hope for audiences in general is that DC gets their ducks in a row to where they can make the Justice League Unlimited kind of a live thing. Yeah. Like a live action thing, like to have a world populated with superheroes that the MCU currently does. Another character, another DC character, for me would be Captain Atom.
Oh, that's a great choice. Yeah.
And definitely the way that Justice League Unlimited portrayed him, that this is a military man, especially in the political climate. I think Captain Atom could be a really interesting character. That this is a guy, this is a guy who follows orders. That's what he does. And just visually, I think Captain Atom could be a super cool addition. In terms of Marvel, I mean, they're getting a lot of people on screen right now. I mean, this is not a lesser known character, but I mean, I sure hope we get to see in the MCU. I hope we get to see Dr. Doom. Especially after the little Howard Stern thing.
I mean, whatever with that. I mean, people were like, wait, Howard Stern is Dr. Doom. That's not what he said. He said he might be in the movie. And he probably have a small part. He's not going to be, Dr. Doom, for God's sakes. Ridiculous.
Which my guess is, like, say he did spill the beans on some Fantastic Four news. Yeah. That he would be playing himself, I would imagine, and he's interviewing Victor Von Doom. Like, that would be my guess. If it's at all even real. Like, it's a giant possibility that was all just, nonsense.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
How about you, Johnny?
I think for me, DC would be Booster Gold.
Man.
I am losing my, I've been rereading Justice League International, the Dematteis run, the J.M. Dematteis run. I love those. That's my favorite Justice League run ever. And I should try out Justice League Unlimited. I should read that run because nothing has ever come close to that. The tongue-in-cheek way they handle that without losing the stakes of all the stories they tell, the Guy Gardner, Fire and Ice, Captain Atom, Rocket Red, all of them that are in there. It's just fantastic. But it's the friendship between Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, the Ted Cord and Booster Gold friendship, that is just so great. as a kind of a Laurel and Hardy type thing. But Booster Gold, there is so much with that story without anybody attached to him. Time traveling aspect of it all, the incredible powers he has, the fact that he's kind of a out of touch, good looking dude living in the bubble. All of those things are just tailor made for the right. Like James Gunn's Booster Gold would be super fascinating. And so this idea that there's a place here for a character like this that could be a lot of fun in the DCU, especially because they seem to have no fear in throwing harder humor, as we saw in Peacemaker, into the DC universe now. I think there's a way to do Booster Gold that's can be fun with some slight harder humor, but also still in the end deliver a really good piece of media for people to enjoy, a really good film or TV series for the people to enjoy. So that's my choice for Booster Gold. For DC. I love the idea of Alpha Flight for Marvel. That's one of those ones like, what are we doing? Like, why are we waiting on Alpha Flight when there's so much there to really uncover and enjoy? So why are we waiting on this? Silver Sable comes to mind. Sentry comes to mind. Really, Hyperion comes to mind if we start looking at Squadron Supreme. But I think Sentry is the one. And, Sentry is so interesting because essentially the Superman of the Marvel Universe, but he has mental health issues. So I think that would be fascinating to take a chance to do a series on the Sentry and what he goes through as the Superman character of Marvel, and the fact that there's this expectation of him, and yet he suffers with, and he usually wins, but he suffers with these occasional bouts of mental health or darkness in the void. And I think that could be really fascinating to explore and gutsy for Marvel to explore in a project. So those are my two kind of out of the box choices. So.
Yeah. And it's like, again, thinking of Marvel now, depending on what they do with Kit Harington's Black Knight, that could open the door to Captain Britain.
Right.
As well. And I know there was a fan petition to have Cavill play Captain Britain. But also Cavill could be Hercules. I think if Cavill, it sure sounds like the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO was Zaslav.
Yeah, David Zaslav. Yeah.
It sure sounds like he wants Henry Cavill staying in that red cape.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, I imagine the MCU would scoop him up toot sweet.
Oh yeah, not even a question. All right, Shen, what's the next question?
This one is fun. So this is from Fatal the Baptist at Black Joe Bags. What movie or TV show have the Geek Buddies bonded over or argued over? And what are the silliest arguments you've had while living together?
Oh, wow. Well, so bonded over? Did we,
Oh, I know what I'm going to say.
Oh, please, go ahead. Take it.
Armageddon.
Oh, my God. Yes.
That is a movie that the three of us, we all acknowledge what it is.
Yes.
But unabashedly just love that movie. The score, the whole 12-minute launch sequence is so good. The fact that Bruce Willis has kind of a roughneck accent at the beginning, and by the end he's full on New Jersey.
Hey man, what are you doing? What is Scoopers? What is this all about?
That movie, the three of us, I want to say it was less than a year. Maybe it was during 2020, but the three of us ended up playing. Someone was watching it on HBO or something.
Yes.
And the other two ended up. We all started texting screenshots.
Yeah.
From the movie, from this movie that we've all seen 100 times.
Screenshots, GIFs, lines. It went on for a while. And the thing is, it should not be the film that all three of us bond over. It really shouldn't, for so many reasons. Because logically, I would like a Michael Bay film, but there's some really cheesy dialogue, some cheesy moments. Michael loves to pick apart movies like this. Shannon picks apart dialogue, interactions, and what have you. But for whatever reason, it checks all our boxes, and it is the one movie we have really kind of surprisingly bonded over. If you're not talking about like, you know, Marvel or DC stuff, that is the one film that kind of would surprise a lot of people that we are, three of us, devoted fans of, like, and know it, know it like line by line. Like, it's not just we enjoy it, we know the movie, you know.
And I would say we don't really, I feel like we respect each other's opinions. Like, we don't really argue over movies. We might debate.
Yeah, we certainly debate.
And Man of Steel was certainly a hot topic for a while. I mean, John loves it the most.
Yes.
I'm definitely on the love train. I'm probably slightly below. And Vogel, as the biggest Superman fan, it is just not. Yeah. It's not his movie, but it's always a healthy, respectful debate. Yeah. It's not an argument.
What you see us do on here is absolutely how we do it regularly anyway. Unless we're fighting about personal shit. But when it comes to movies or geek stuff, this is how we debate about it or fight about it, is how you see it on the show. It's legitimate. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But the silliest, I don't know. What's the, I mean, yeah, I guess because Mike's not here to say it, I think it would have to be Finding Nemo, right? I mean, it was the Finding Nemo fight. I think that's what it was. The Finding Nemo fight. That happened when we were living together, me and him with Ian. And we just, for Michael, for whatever reason, Michael, there was just differences of opinions going on like crazy in the house that day about going to see Finding Nemo at a certain time. I think I'd accused him of being, I think back then it wasn't called privileged. It was something else, you know, conceited or arrogant or something about it. And, I'd gone too far, and Michael just kind of was so hurt, lost it, stormed upstairs, crying, got into the bed and slammed the door, which I think, if I remember correctly, the door wasn't fixed. So it was like a saloon door or whatever. And so it went back, and he's like, fine, go see the movie without me. And I don't know if we were arguing about the times of the movie or arguing about like who was going to get to go when. I don't know what it was, but it set off a firestorm in the house for sure. And I mean, arguing over an animated Pixar film is probably one of the most ridiculous, and not even arguing about the film, arguing about going to see it and when was the argument. That's one of the silliest that I can remember. You got any silly ones to throw in?
I mean, you know, we always come back to the No Man Left Behind.
Oh my God. I guess we'll have to talk about it now. You brought it up. Go ahead.
Well, no, you did.
Well,
you
not
brought
the
it
full
up.
story. Not the full story.
You brought it up, and I'm not going to bring this up.
That's true.
So I will try to truncate this because you know, we've talked about it before, but it was Comic-Con. I want to say it was the first night of Comic-Con. So
yes, a few years ago,
we went pretty hard. I mean, we were having a good time.
We were getting drunk, son.
And we ended up at this late night pizza place that was a little deeper into the gas lamp. Like, you're starting to leave the safety's not the right word. Like, but you're starting to leave the security of the Comic-Con businesses more into the not as Comic-Con.
The citizens are showing up, basically.
Sure, the locals.
Yeah, the locals.
And we all got some pizza, and I was and it was not
crazy.
just.
It was crazy.
It was very busy, and it was also not just me and John. Mike Kalinowski was there, and our friend Jonathan Blue was there as well. Yeah. But basically what happened is, and again, this is very fuzzy because I'd had a little bit to drink. John, of course not. You're the aggrieved party.
Very clear.
You're very clear. John was going across the street to get some money out of the ATM.
Yeah, to get a pizza.
Yes,
and didn't take the charge card.
I don't remember the sequence of events, but I feel like somebody just was like, you know what, I'm gonna go. And so, not really remembering why we were there to begin with, I'm like, all right, let's go. And so we ended back at the hotel bar.
The three of them left me by myself at a seedy pizza place with some unsavory characters at 1 or 2 in the morning.
It was late. It was late.
And I was very hurt by this because, you know, I was still kind of like getting my feet wet at Comic-Con. It had only been a few years I'd been going. So I was like, hanging out with buddies was a big deal to me. And I think it was still in the throes of my kind of therapy and stuff and figuring out my issues with self-worth and self-acceptance and all of that. So it was definitely before 2016. So, yeah. And so I felt really hurt by what they did.
You felt abandoned.
I stormed back. And the whole time I'm like, see, they fucking hate you. They fucking hate you. You're nobody. You mean nothing to them. They left you behind. That's how little you matter to these motherfuckers. I don't know why you, blah, blah, blah. All these internal dialogue is going on in my head. And so I show up at the hotel room and I showed up and I got in bed. Yeah. Because no one was there in the hotel room. So I was there by myself. And I got in bed. And I ate my pizza, goddamn. But I got in bed. And Shannon comes in and with Mike.
No, it was Kalinowski first.
Kalinowski comes in.
Kalinowski first.
And I started yelling at him, and like, what the fuck happened? Blah, blah, blah. And everybody's drunk, right? I don't think anybody did it on purpose. They just wanted to get back. I just know they wouldn't have left Vogel behind. But anyway, Shannon comes in and
determined to fix the situation.
Yeah, determined because Kalinowski and I at the time, we had issues already that were bubbling below the surface. And that kind of really exploded it. And then Shannon came in, and trying to piece. And I went after him more than Kalinowski because Shannon was actually my friend of years, and I couldn't believe it. It was more of an offense that Shannon did it than Kalinowski or Blue, So it just was. It really escalated into. And Shannon, to his credit, exactly what he said earlier in the show. He tried to appease the situation, tried to rub my leg. He tried to say all these things, and I was like, no, not this time.
Well, I remember Kalinowski ran out of the hall.
Yes,
ran out of the room into the hall as I'm, like a pinball, bouncing down the hallway, and he's just like, "Oh, champ, don't go in there. He's mad. He's mad." And I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I got it." and I could not believe in my inebriated stupor that I'm like, I can't believe this is not working. It always works. And then John was just very, very upset. And
it was clearly, as Shannon has asked me in the past, what's this really about? It clearly was about so much more than what had just happened. Yeah.
But to John's credit, he got out what he needed to get out, but then he's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I don't want to talk about I just want to go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. And by the time, we woke up and it at least for you and I, it had passed. It became more of a joke at that point. But you were just like, you looked over and you kind of grabbed your pillow and it's like you reared it back like you were going to clock me. And then you were like, don't leave me. Don't leave me. And I'm like, yep, got it.
So to make it clear. Yeah, those are the times. And then, now I just,
And then I remember Kalinowski thinking like, oh, okay, everything's good. And you're like, oh, I'm not done with you yet.
Yeah, we have to have our conversation. Just like a true Scorpio. But now when I go to Comic-Con, I'd like to go off on my own and go do stuff and go whatever because I feel more comfortable now. I know the layout, and so it's a lot more chill. I mean, I remember one night recently I went off on my own at the cigar bar and sat out there and had drinks and smoked my cigar and just really enjoyed my night. So it just at the time I was dealing with clearly a lot of shit that I hadn't dealt with, and I'm glad I did through therapy because that's a pretty silly argument. Like, oh, fuck it, they left. I'm like, eat my pizza and head on back to the hotel. No big deal. But yeah, definitely. Let's do one more so we can move on to talk a little something else. Well, this is fun. I like this one. Here, let me bring this one up here, man. And then we're gonna wrap it up, I think, after one or two of these questions here. So I'm sorry if we didn't get to all the questions, but I like this one from Anthony Perez at Darth_Mischief. He says, after recently watching the new Father of the Bride and digging it, and it is good, it's on HBO Max, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Garcia is fantastic in the film. I decided to rewatch Godfather 3, Coda version this time. I don't know, maybe I'm just on an Andy Garcia kick, but I really embraced the film and his character in particular. Would a Godfather 4 starring Andy Garcia as an older, more reserved Don, directed by a young and hungry director, sound good to you guys? With all these legacy sequels coming out, why not The Godfather? Cinema is sorely missing the epic mafia film these days. And Shannon, I ask you this question on the heels of you having finished The Offer. So thoughts on this idea of would you want to see a Godfather 4 with Andy Garcia as an older Don now, and a young, hungry director taking the reins.
So the Godfather 3 I have seen one time.
Yeah.
And it is not something that I would be excited to revisit.
Fair enough.
Godfather 1, I've watched many times. Godfather 2 less so. I'm one of the few that thinks the first one's better than the second one. But I do like Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
And it would all depend. I mean, it would just depend on the story, because there are so many ways that these legacy sequels, some turn out great. The majority feel kind of like cash grabs.
Yeah.
And I would, I'd like to think that's never the filmmaker's intention. Like, even if a studio wants to cash grab, like the filmmaker, the creative team that they hire, they want to make a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say. I mean, again, I understand the absence of the epic mafia film. We've gotten so much great mafia stuff on TV. Like, you had The Sopranos, you had Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
But on the heels of watching The Offer, which is on Paramount Plus, it's about the making of The Godfather from the perspective of Albert Ruddy, who was the producer. Great series, really, really great series. I don't know. I mean, but again, I think if you're making it with Andy Garcia, it's not that. It's gonna be a continuation. Because when did The Godfather 3 come out?
1990, I think.
1990. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you're talking 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, listening to the Cinephiles on Ocean's 11.
Oh yeah.
With Andy Garcia, you guys talking about Andy Garcia and how much, I really liked Andy Garcia. Like he just had this quiet menace. Yeah. Thinking of that.
Yeah.
In Godfather 4, that could be interesting.
But we haven't seen that Andy in years, man. That's my concern, I think. Sorry, Shannon, do you want to finish your point? Sorry.
Well, I mean, basically, because the Godfather trilogy is not necessarily near and dear to my heart, I don't have as much skin in the game. It's like, you want to take another swing at it? Great, go for it. Yeah. Indiana Jones 5, that was a great still. And I like James Mangold, but after 4, I'm a bit gun shy. So I think the better person to ask would be you, because you're more in that camp than I am.
Yeah. I think enough time has passed where I'd be excited to explore this world again. And wouldn't the irony be that Sofia Coppola directs it? So, right? I mean, with her dad on as executive producer.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah, keep it in the family, of course. I think it would be fascinating. And ironically, directing her love interest from Godfather Part 3 in this role. She should not appear. Well, of course, she's dead, so she doesn't have to appear. But thank God. But I think her directing it now as a seasoned director and someone who's in her prime as a director, I think would be really fascinating. And having a woman's point of view, because that is very important nowadays in our pop culture and in our media that we consume, creating space for women to take their points or give their points of views on older properties or older franchises or older stuff. I think it would be fascinating to have that. And seeing Vincent now 30 years later, what kind of Don would he be? Would he be better than Michael? Would he be worse than Michael? Who would be around him? I mean, Talia Shire is still around. So Talia Shire could have a role to play here for sure. I don't know if any of the other characters are around here, but there's possibilities. I would love to see it, to be honest with you. And I think it would be the time to do it now. Because Garcia, he's still an incredible actor. It's just we haven't seen him do these things. It was like seeing De Niro in American Hustle, right? Just those 5 minutes scared the living shit out of you. Even though you just seen 4 Meet the Parents movies, he still has that gear when he needs to turn it on. And so my question is, does Andy still have that gear in this construct to turn it on and make it work as a Don who could be seen as someone to fear and respect. So yeah, I'd be willing to open the door to it if it stays in the family. So that's my point of view on it, because I think Andy's great. And we'd love to see Andy revisit that role. Why not? If Tom can do what he did in Top Gun Maverick, I think Andy can do what he does in this film. And we'd end the series on a way better film than Godfather Part 3, which is not a good movie. I don't care whether it's Coda or not. It is not a good movie. All right. Do you want to pick one more, or shall we? Are we good?
No, let's do one more, because
we
were talking about Top Gun. I gotta scroll to find it here. Where did it go? Okay, here we go.
Okay.
This is from Alex Tornai, which is at Tornai88. So that's Tornai if you're looking for the spelling. Assuming Top Gun Maverick remains the top grossing film of the year until December, do you think that Avatar 2 has a chance at surpassing Top Gun when it's all said and done?
Ooh, good question. Good question. Wow. And yeah, Top Gun crossed $1 billion before July 4th weekend. A lot of people thought it was going to cross it this weekend. Now, because of July 4th and the celebration and the dearth of competition, because Jurassic World Dominion is sinking like a stone, it's making its money, but it's not anywhere near number one. Elvis, took the top spot for 1 week over Top Gun, but barely.
Lightyear is sinking like a stone.
Yeah, Lightyear. So sorry, Lightyear is actually sinking like a stone. Right. Jurassic is still making its money, but it's not in the top slot or threatening to be in the top slot. And Marcel the Shell is a really sweet film, but that is not going to challenge Top Gun Maverick. So it's a great question. I think it's going to keep making its money. I mean, I see this staying in the theaters for maybe another month or so, bro. And that's kind of insane to think about. They haven't even released an announcement of when this might be available in home video. And I think the reason is because it's doing so well in the theaters, there's no plan to drop it just yet on home video. Even though you see the pictures, you see the artwork being done, they're not rushing it out. So I think this is going to hang on for quite some time. But do I think Avatar 2 is going to beat it? I think it all depends on if it's a good movie, to be honest with you. I think people are going to come out to see it the first weekend. But just like with Jurassic World Dominion, nostalgia is not enough to have it vie for number one consistently for weeks, right? That would equate it being able to cross $1 billion and challenge Top Gun Maverick. So I think it has to be a good movie. And if it is, along with the visuals I saw in that trailer, then yes, I think absolutely it'll. What did I say? I said I thought if it's a good movie, I said that it would cross $3 billion, which has never been done. And I think Avatar 2 has a real opportunity to cross $3 billion if it's incredible.
Man, I don't know. Like the vibe that I get, because it has less to do, because obviously Top Gun, as you said, is going to keep making money. There's no rush to have it leave theaters because it's still making money hand over fist. Yeah. The vibe that I get from a lot of folks with Avatar is like, oh, okay, it looks like the first one, but with water. Right. That's kind of that's the vibe. I mean, and thinking back to 2009 when Avatar came out, and how James Cameron had really revolutionized that 3D technology. I don't know. I don't know how many people are jonesing to revisit the world of Pandora. Like, I might be wrong. Like, I'm excited to see Avatar 2. I thought the first one, that was an incredible experience. That was past movie, but because the 3D was just so encompassing. Yeah. Will the second one do that? I don't know. I mean, Vogel talks about, like, I've not been there, but in Animal Kingdom in Orlando, the fourth Disney park, they have Pandora.
Pandora, yeah.
And the ride, which I believe is called Flight of Passage, it's where you basically ride a banshee, you know, the flying animals. Yeah. I hear that's the most amazing ride in the world. I mean, Vogel talks about how emotional he got during it because you have the Avatar score, you have the Avatar score playing. But again, like, being a theme park employee and knowing folks who work in the industry, I don't know how successful it was. And maybe it was great. And it just hasn't that information it didn't get to me. Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see how many people go back and see Avatar 2 again, because that's really where Top Gun is making its money. Is people want that feeling again, again, and again, and again. With everything that's come out, like, you and I talked about already. I mean, my wife and I, we saw Elvis over the weekend.
Right.
It was good. It was fine. I know. Well, I don't have the love for the King that you do. Incredible aspects to it.
Yeah.
But we got out of the theater. I'm like, I want to go see Top Gun again. Like, I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times now. And like, I'm fine to go by myself. And like, the thing that, like, especially if you have the AMC A-List app and you can pick your seat, every weekend it's still playing in big theaters, and every weekend they're packed.
Yeah.
And people just want to keep seeing this movie again and again. So to your point, if Avatar 2 is an incredible movie that people want to experience multiple times, 100%. Like, as Vogel has always said, don't count out James Cameron.
Nope.
But at this point, Top Gun seems like a car you can't catch right now.
I feel like Top Gun Maverick is the one film that finally says that cinema's back. Like, it's the Field of Dreams film. And by that I mean, people will come, Ray. They don't know why. They'll just hand over their money because they want to feel that feeling again. And exactly what you're saying. That speech from Field of Dreams describes Top Gun Maverick. If you took some words out and replaced it with Top Gun Maverick, you'd basically have that. Why people are going to see it multiple times. As you said, they love the feeling of that film. It reminds them of so many things. And it connects with multiple generations, because it isn't old people going to see it multiple times. It's multiple generations of people going to see it multiple times. And so that's what that film is, right? So it's an anomaly in that way. The one thing I'll say about Avatar 2, the other thing I'll say about Avatar 2 is that the trailer for it, and you say, people you talk to, we know a lot of cynical people, so they can be like, who cares? But that trailer picked up almost 150 million views in 24 hours. And that's not even counting the people that saw it in the Doctor Strange theaters, right, for the first time. $150 million. It broke the 24-hour viewership record by almost 40 million views. That Black Widow was the winner at 116.8. And it got almost 150 at 148 points, or 148.6 million dollars. So that's insane. Okay, or 30 million views, I guess, is the difference. That's insane. And so that, to me, tells me that there is an interest outside our Hollywood cynical bubble of us, that most people are like, cool, a James Cameron film, that was fun. Bless you. I'll go see it. And so I think they're going to go in droves, and if it's good, it's going to shock people how much money it makes. That's why I think it's going to make $3 billion. There's something about Cameron that he is the Pied fucking Piper of cinema, and people go see his movies. I saw Titanic 8 times in the theaters. People go see his movies multiple times, maybe for the same reason they go to Top Gun Maverick, Shannon, is to feel that feeling and escape into a whole nother world. And it's so viscerally believable that they can't help themselves but be caught up in it. So in a world that's consistently going crazy week to week, day by day, sometimes hour by hour, sometimes going to a place where you can disappear into a completely whole other world where the good people win over the bad, I think will attract a lot of people to go see a movie like this. So, I
mean, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I mean,
James Cameron hopes I'm right.
Yeah. He's got to fund that next expedition to the Titanic.
He's got 3 more of these to go.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, I love pulling up that AMC app and seeing how crowded Top Gun is. I mean, I hope that real estate doesn't just belong to Marvel. I hope that other studios, other franchises, other films are able to replicate that success.
Yeah, for sure. All right, on that note, we should get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching our special Q&A or listening to our special Q&A episode here from the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, another fun show. Please let people know what we got to let them know.
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies. On Instagram, at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
And as Michael might say, if you like to answer questions or if you like to ask questions, whatever you like to do, we want you to be part of the Geek Buddies community. So make sure you hit a like on this video, leave a comment down below. Let us know what your answers were to these questions. What do you want? Do you think Avatar 2 is going to surpass Top Gun Maverick? Do you think Andy Garcia should be doing Godfather 4 with Sofia Coppola directing? Do you want to see a Booster Gold movie? Or do you want to see anything else that Shannon and John proposed? Let us know down in the comment section below. Remember to leave a like or on this podcast as well. Remember, we've got the Geek Buddies podcast feed out there. Leave a review, leave a rating. Those all help us go up in people's points of views and get seen by more people. So there you go. So they can hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies. There you go. And we appreciate it madly. And also a big shout out to carbonhealth.com. Carbonhealth.com. There they support and sponsor us here on the Geek Buddies. Hey, they've got an app that you can download as well. Have a doc in your pocket, a doctor in your pocket there for any healthcare questions, concerns, or needs you have in your daily life. They have virtual care. They have in-person care. They got clinics all across the country. Certainly there's 60-plus locations in California alone. They believe in uplifting communities, helping communities who are positive, just like the Geek Buddies communities, and they love to create specialized healthcare plans just for you. And look, a lot of stuff's going on in the world. Getting a checkup isn't a bad thing. Making sure everything's going right with you is a good thing because you never know how stress can affect your body. So go and get that checked out. Go and get a full physical today over at carbonhealth.com. All right, thank you all so much, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here from the
Geek Buddies.